Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Club Grubbery. I'm here with these so-called 60-year-olds, which I think are actually younger. There you go. The big Grubbery sign right there. John, Graham, welcome to the show.
He must be averaging our ages out, Hoodie.
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, between the two of us, we've got 120 years or so going, haven't we, John?
I think so.
Along that vein, I want to put a public notice out there to everyone that's listening. Please look out for yourselves. We are going into magpie season, so just maybe wear a cap or something. Make sure you're not getting attacked. But yeah, gents, welcome to the show. You guys have been busy. You've been interviewing doctors. You've been spreading the word. What's been happening?
Well, the doctors are really coming into their own, Joel, as we're seeing this action against AHPRA by Dr. William Bay, and rallies out the front of AHPRA headquarters all over the country. And some of the testimonies we're getting from doctors who are members of AMPS, the Australian Medical Professionals Society, is breathtaking. And Dr. Jayanthi last night, John, was just incredible, wasn't she?
She was, amazing. A different sort of format to the other two doctors we interviewed, because she had a very unique story and a very bubbly personality. So she would have appealed to a lot of the folk out there, because she was a real inspiration from the point of view of her background.
Mm. Well, we've seen a lot of protests outside of the different. It's ASIC, isn't it? Yeah, it's ASIC. Outside the different ASIC headquarters around the country. What are you hearing on the ground? Is it AHPRA?
AHPRA, yeah. Securities and Investment Commission.
I always get confused with AHPRA because they're not only like the medical sort of board that's the watchdog, but they also it's an acronym for another organisation. But anyway, side note. But yeah, we've been seeing these protests outside the organisations by some doctors getting decertified, and I think it's been blowing up quite a bit.
Yeah, well, the fact is that you cannot have science unless you have a proper debate. And we have not had a scientific or medical debate in this country, and the country is worse for it, Joel.
Yeah.
We've been censored into oblivion. The doctors, the medical professionals have all been censored into oblivion. And there needs to be, and John's been calling for this for a while, there needs to be a moratorium to allow doctors to speak out without recrimination. AHPRA is a malignant tumour in Australia. AHPRA has nothing to do with health. AHPRA is a scurrilous organisation that represents the absolute worst of governments in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. I was quite encouraged this week looking at some of the commentary around, obviously, the whole Scott Morrison saga. For those of you that haven't been following, Scott Morrison has basically self-appointed himself to be Minister of Health, Finance, Home Affairs, Treasury, Resource and Industry throughout his time as Prime Minister. And he was basically a presidential sort of role. And a lot of people have really been getting very upset about this because one man shouldn't have that much power. In fact, David Astle joked around saying that Scott Morrison's pronouns are they, them. But what's been encouraging out of all of this, guys, has been seeing the calls for a bit more accountability. Now, the left is a lot of the people in the government right now, like Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister. He's been making the point that, what was the Governor General doing? Maybe we should start moving towards a republic sort of model. And he's basically going up after his political opponents. But then you get other people like Chris Ullman, who was gracious enough to interview you, John, in Canberra, which made a huge impact. And he actually ended up making the point that, no, this is actually, we need to make room for a royal commission. This is all the more reason why government shouldn't have all this power. And I'll just play that clip for you guys right now.
No, it doesn't, Georgie. You could make an argument that the Prime Minister had to share the health portfolio in the pandemic because the biosecurity law is so draconian. It gives the health minister the powers of a dictator. It's bad law, but the solution shouldn't be bad government. If shadowing health was necessary, it should have been public. Everything after that was overreach, and Scott Morrison's own colleagues believe it undermined them. It's just one more example of why we must have a Royal Commission into the pandemic response that shines a bright light on every level of government, every leader and every bureaucrat. Anthony Albanese says it's inconceivable that there won't be a Royal Commission, Georgie. Well, the Prime Minister should call one now.
Gents, what are your thoughts?
I love the guy. I love him.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, there's a tear in my eye after hearing that. I mean, because look, he has been, without question, the one journalist in mainstream media that has been fair and balanced. Not one side or the other, but fair and balanced, and he's reported it, in an accurate sense. He's given us an opportunity to talk. He's been very fair and reasonable, and what he asked for there was it's a miracle, really, that we're even talking about that. He has really been a beacon of light for journalists in the mainstream media, and we don't need to thank him for doing his job, but he certainly has demonstrated that he is a very capable journalist and a very decent person.
Graham?
Well, he is to journalism what Dr. Jay Anthony is to medicine. Yesterday, Jay Anthony mentioned terms that brought John and I to tears because she talked about things like first do no harm and informed consent, and everything that came out of her mouth has been missing from the medical discourse for the last 2.5 years. And Chris Uhlmann is in that mould. And he and Rowan Dean, Sky News Rowan Dean, apparently is really hitting hard. And we're seeing 2GB at odds with each other. Their presenters are fighting each other. Ben Fordham is fighting with that other clown. What's his face again? I keep forgetting his name. Hey, Radley.
Yeah.
So look, I mean, this to me is a great sign. The fact that these doctors are now really speaking out in mass and in bulk, and we're starting to see cracks in mainstream journalism. I mean, I featured on Media Watch after the rally in Canberra. I don't know whether you saw that, Joel, but
No.
That there was a distinct jibe against me in that from its presenter, but he also highlighted some of the facts that I tried to get people to see, that if you want mainstream media to talk about your story, you've got to stop spitting at them and calling them liars. You've got to actually be rational and reasonable. Otherwise, your message will not get across. And I think we're starting to see that. I think that's what worked with Chris when Chris Uhlmann came out behind the barricades at the new Parliament House and interviewed with John and I. And that's what Media Watch were talking about Chris's courage to come out and interview us and how we thanked him for doing that. I mean, it's inconceivable. We've got to thank journalists for doing their job, but in this day and age, we actually do. Because if it weren't for guys like you, Joel, and all the other guys in the alternate media, we wouldn't have any truth access whatsoever.
Yeah, it's sort of the brilliance of big tech, and I'm thankful to God that at the right times He provided the tools that we needed. I mean, Graham, when you came out with your video about, and we're coming up a year on that in September, when you came out with your video about, blowing the whistle, I was watching the video again just recently, and you were saying these people aren't just protesters trying to spread the virus everywhere. They're freedom fighters, and they're fighting for the right that you've given away. And I just think that, it's so funny, and this is why I really am a guy of faith. And every time when we've needed something and we ask for it, God just seems to provide it, just like there. I mean, there have been protests, and I hate to get into the weather thing, but there have been protests where I've said to God, look, if you could just hold off the rain just for a couple of hours, And it's actually happened. It's been amazing. I am a guy of faith. I'm proud to say it. And I think that, you can't explain the success we've seen the last 2 years without an element of the divine. But even with John Larter coming out and his story going gangbusters and people supporting him throughout his fight, the fight's not over. But my God, has the support been absolutely overwhelming and encouraging to see?
Yeah, it certainly has. It's been a roller coaster ride the last year, I think, for both of us, John. But I've been up and down all over the place, and you find yourself in this situation where everyone says, "Oh, okay, he's going to be the spokesman for the entire freedom movement." So you get bombarded with everyone's different agendas, and people get upset if you don't support the agenda they send you, and you literally cannot fight every single battle. You just have to fight them one at a time. And the last year, the roller coaster of the last year has been very much centered around that. And, I think we get this Royal Commission happening. Call me naive. Some will call me naive. But this Royal Commission needs to happen because Morrison has put a spotlight on the mafia-style corruption in the Australian government. Let's make no bones about it. And that needs to be brought to the fore. And that covers everything in the realm of what's gone on in the last 2 years. Who knows what other scope that will throw forward? Look, yeah, we've lost faith in every institution on earth, and Royal Commissions are no different. But at least we're going to start to see some light shed somewhere, and that's a start that we've all been praying for the last couple of years.
All right. Well, let's try this. What are the conditions for success from a Royal Commission? What are the questions you want answered from a Royal Commission, gentlemen?
John?
Well, I think it needs to be far-reaching. I think it needs to be independent, and it really does need to concentrate on whether there was a pandemic, what health outcomes were restricted because of false information or diabolical misadventure, or people corruptly applying a set of values to something. And ivermectin's a perfect example of that. People being denied healthcare that could have prevented people from getting sick. What the healthcare system suffered as a result of the fraud that's occurred. So the pressure that's put on the hospital system, from the closing down of back of house services to the dismissal of frontline healthcare workers, and ultimately the corruption, malfeasance that's gone on behind the scenes in perpetrating all this mess. Because we've now got a broken community as a result of a leadership that was completely out of control, that was maniacal. I don't know how else you describe it when you look at these premiers. I mean, they were completely unhinged. That they've caused that many deaths, they've caused that many injuries, they've caused so much heartache and disruption to the economy, to the social fabric of our community, to people's well-being. It's just so disproportionate to what we're used to. So I think it needs to be far-reaching. It needs to be independent, and I think that's going to be the difficult bit. I mean, what we don't want to have happen is have a Royal Commission that gets bogged down for 5 years with he said, she said, and have no accountability or outcomes. People need to be held to account for their actions, and they need to be criminally charged if there's evidence to suggest that they've done the wrong thing, and people need to be compensated, and there needs to be a range of issues or measures that fix some of the bad behaviour that's been experienced, and those measures need to be put in place with probably a long-lasting legacy for those that are injured.
Lost you, Joel.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I was just going to say that I don't know if you heard the news about Victor Dominello, who's actually resigned from the New South Wales state government in the lower house. He is the architect of, I do believe, the Service New South Wales app, which they were using to put the jab passport in. Like, it just seems like all of the politicians that were the architects of this have just jumped off the plague ship. And it's no worries. They've got their pensions. They're fine now. They're happy days forever. But these problems are long lasting. Inflation. I mean, are we going to pretend that we should never have lockdown and induce this inflation due to the mass spending? I mean, there are very angry people right now, and they are looking for a direction to put their anger. I don't think we're going to see a return to lockdowns, not for a very long time. And I don't think we're going to see a return to jab mandates as widespread as we saw in mid to late 2021 rather. But we're just starting to see and really feel that crunch of that cost of living crisis, which they talked about during the election. And they have no plans to ease that cost of living. It's only going to get worse. Employment's going to get worse. And it just seems as though all of these politicians have just gotten off scot-free on their publicly paid pensions. I mean, this is I don't know. Are you guys as angry as I am?
Can I give you a short, sharp terms of reference for the Royal Commission?
Sure.
Number 1, judicial deafness. Number 2, propaganda mainstream media needs to be thoroughly investigated. APRA and its role need to be thoroughly investigated, and they need to be disbanded. The role of state premiers to be able to close borders and trash the Australian Federal Commonwealth Constitution needs to be examined and fully explained. And the role of bureaucracy in destroying the lives of the Australian people it's meant to serve, that needs to be examined. Now, there's 5 or 6 in a hit, and I think we could add another 5 or 6. But you deal with those things straight off the bat, Joel. You're going to start solving some of the bigger issues that people are angry about. There are a lot of big questions that need to be answered, and the Royal Commission needs to start there. And once it starts dealing with those issues, then it needs to continue into all the other dark corners and crevices that are polluting the Australian psyche.
Amen.
I
totally agree.
They shouldn't get their pensions, Joel. I mean, Hoodie summed that up beautifully, as he always does. So it's not that difficult. I mean, people will make a mountain out of a molehill with the Royal Commission. They'll say, but look, it just needs to be kept very simple and independent, and just concentrate, as Hoodie said, on some key things, and everything else will just come out in the wash. That's the reality. We'll see things, and then we'll be able to go down a different pathway when we see things happen. But the people in these positions of authority that are going to be collecting their pensions and thinking that they can exit stage left and get out while the going's good, there is legislation that says these politicians, if they're found guilty of criminal activity, then they give up their pensions. So,
yeah, it needs to go way beyond that too. There needs to be jail time. There are people who are culpable and need to go to prison for long periods of time. That's a must. That has to happen. And we've also got to look at law enforcement. The way law enforcement's been used as a quasi-military, paramilitary organisation for the whims of these premiers. This, and you watch, mark my words, there will be a Royal Commission, or there'll be an independent inquiry, and you watch the House of Cards collapse. They'll all be blaming each other. The health bureaucrats will be blaming the premiers, and they'll be blaming Atagi and all the others. But at the end of the day, this thing will fold in on itself, as it must. It must, for the sake of our nation. It must come down to that.
Well,
I'm so yeah. You go, John.
well, I was just going to say, Joel, when you go back to Morrison, now, I mean, it beggars belief to me what's going on there. I mean, people will, but you've got to go back to Gough
Yeah.
before you see this same thing repeating itself. Now, Gough Whitlam, he was sacked. He was sacked by the Governor General. Now, what here with Morrison, we've got a situation where, look, I can probably accept Chris Uhlmann's view of that. I think it's probably okay. The fact that these laws were draconian, they probably did need a circuit breaker. The Prime Minister, if everyone was aware that was the case, fair enough. And I understand that he did tell Hunt, and Hunt agreed. Well, fair enough. But why? I mean, the big question here is why did he then tippy-toe into all these other ministries and not tell the people like Matthias Cormann that he was actually a signatory or an authority to the ministry? I mean, I would have thought that was a massive thing. And he says yesterday or the day before on Ben Forder's program, oh, but Ben, I didn't have to act, and I didn't have to do anything. But look, the reality is here he did, and the one thing that he climbed all over was a decision that he made about a gas exploration project or something off the New South Wales south coast.
Yeah.
Now, why did he do that? He said that he had trust in his ministers to make the decision, but at the end of the day, because he overruled the bloke.
That's right. That's right. He did a long post on Facebook, big statement. Because just for context, guys, prime ministers, they typically, after they've served their term, even if they're still sitting members of parliament, they don't typically weigh in on politics, unless it's, of course, a guy like Malcolm Turnbull, who can't help himself, or Kevin Rudd. But when it comes to what he ended up saying, yeah, this he did wield this power. He did nuke a deal. He was trying to virtue signal to the Teals, to the Greens, to the lefty Labor people, and he ended up wielding that power against the interest of conservatives and right-winged people. Yep. And he didn't even tell anyone he did it. I mean, when you're in, and you know what, Labor did make one good point. They said when we're in Prime Minister's questions time and we're directing a question to a specific minister on a specific portfolio, we need to know who that minister is. And if you've got the Prime Minister running around here nuking gas deals which are costing jobs of Australians, people deserve a right to have that scrutiny no matter which party it's from. I mean, to an extent, this was a massive assault on democracy.
Well, Joel, I think the other thing to ask the question about here is the one, if he was a co-authority to the health portfolio. Now, the one thing that he should have injected himself into the back line for, in a football term sense, was he made out to the Australian community that mandatory vaccinations were not an Australian government endorsed thing. He virtue signalled that from day dot. Now, the one thing that he should have injected himself into the back line for was that he should have come in and said to Hunt, no, I'm the health minister as well. We will not be mandating, and nobody will have the power to mandate that in any workplace in Australia. But he didn't. He sat idle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, the idea that he washed his hands of that is completely untrue. Former MP from the Liberal Party, George Christensen, absolute legend, he came out and basically made the point that Greg Hunt, the Minister for Health, basically lied to them. That's what he said. And George is not one to throw phrases around. He's very measured. They were told that the My Health record would not be used to actually put people out of their jobs, and they lied. They lied to the ministers that represent 100,000 people per electorate. George Christensen represents 100,000 people, and they lied to these ministers. So it was put in on a false premise. And this is the problem, guys. If the government is given the power to do something, assume that they're going to do it. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. They will use it. That's why you've got to be very careful. And that's why Chris Ullman is 100% right. The government way overstepped the mark here. And every now and then we do have to look at our constitution and be like, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? We need to enshrine it. We need to have a referendum. We need to have a well-informed royal commission. And we need to make sure this doesn't happen again, because this is the thing. A royal commission, a thorough one, done properly, it might take 5 years, but this is the thing, guys. There are kids that are 10 years younger than me, 20 years younger than me, that are in school, 5 to 18 years old. And we will know them as the COVID kids, the COVID babies, which aren't showing the same reactions to emotion as we are. So what could end up happening is these kids are going to grow up forever being stunted by the government decisions like lockdowns, keeping them away from peers, making sure that they're not as socialized as you or I was. And now we're in a situation where those have long-lasting impacts. So if this is going to take, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years to do this Royal Commission properly, it must be done, because these kids, when they grow up, they're always going to blame these ministers, and they're going to look to their parents and say, why didn't you stand up for me?
Look, Morrison's finished. I mean, if he's not finished, there's something even worse wrong with the system than we can imagine. But what the Australian people are fed up with seeing is these corrupt politicians exiting stage left with their super and with all their entitlements intact, but then going on to do cushy jobs in the UN, or they're working for the World Bank or the World Economic Forum. If these people keep popping up, we know the system is not going to be fixed, and the Australian people won't tolerate that. They cannot be put through the meat mincer that they've been put through in the last few years and tolerate the guys who are on the grinder getting cushy jobs when they've had everything stripped away from them. They will not tolerate it. I won't tolerate it.
Yeah, well said, Woody. Yeah,
absolutely.
The other thing is too, Joel, there's nothing stopping the Royal Commission having some interim findings. If we investigate point one and it's obvious that there's problems, well, present some interim findings that are binding, in lieu of the entire report being done. We don't have to wait 5 years to get, the answers to question one.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the questions I want answered is, how did Australia stack up to other countries and other states? How did we stack up to Florida? That's a fairly comparable state in population. Did we need to lock down? Did we need to have mandates in schools? They didn't have mandates in schools. Kids were going to school. They didn't have to have mask mandates. In fact, the Florida governor went so far as to remove public funding for schools that put mask mandates for kids, because it didn't make any sense. The kids weren't infecting each other. They weren't driving infections. They don't have a huge risk of dying due to COVID. And this is the frustrating thing. They're still going on with a lot of these things, even during winter now. As things warm up for us in Australia, it's looking more and more idiotic, these measures. But overseas, it's going to start to get colder, and they'll try and bring some of these things sort of back.
Look, Brett Sutton pretty much nailed himself to a tree the other day. I think early August, when he said that the vaccines, third and fourth shots just weren't working. Having said that, the only hope you've got for survival in April is to get the third and fourth shot. I mean, this is a clear indication. Now, these are these are words from his own mouth. This is a clear indication that the health bureaucracy is either incredibly naive or it's incredibly corrupt. And I think there's an element of both there. And I think the Australian public is getting fed up with being told that they have to protect the health system, which is meant to be there to protect them. I listened to a story last night of a family in Canberra whose 5-year-old daughter spent 12 hours in a hospital dying, and nobody took her seriously. Now, she died of myocarditis. Now, I'm not making any reference to vaccines here at all. I'm not talking about vaccines in this case at all. What I'm talking about is a health system that is completely and utterly crushed. That should happen in Australia's capital city is an absolute disgrace. Now, that is a measure of the corrupt ineptitude of governments in this country, of bureaucrats in this country. We're sick of electing members to the House and to the Senate who then have to have everything filtered through a bureaucracy that's out of control. And it's actually the tail that's wagging the dog. We're fed up with the bureaucrats running the country. We want our elected citizens to run the country.
Amen to that. And, I want to commend you guys for building a safe space for people to come and have those discussions and listen to doctors and well-informed people, educated people in society. They're not crackpots. You're interviewing people that are respected in their fields, and for whatever reason, all the other professionals have just dropped the ball on this because of their own self-preservation. How do you fight back, guys?
Well, you don't use Facebook.
Yeah. What's happened to your account, John?
Well, I'm banned for 7 days because I shared Dr. Simone Gold's tweet on the Icelandic report. Now, it contravened poor old Facebook's community standards. So
Yeah. God. Well, John, where can we send people? I mean, obviously they can see your content on Graham's page, which I've popped up a few times. But are you on Telegram, John? Are you on Rumble?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't have a clue where I am half the time.
Me either.
Look, I think there's a thing called Clo that Michael Gray Griffiths has introduced us to. My technical prowess with this is very limited, and the kids try and help me, but they get frustrated. So I'm not as bad as Caitlin, but I'm not fantastic at this stuff. So yeah, there's a bit of Telegram, bit of BitChute, bit of whatever else. But all right.
Well, John, I'm going to make some inquiries into how to build your following up again, and I'm very protective of the accounts I've helped build up and start off. Don't get me wrong. Graham's got an awesome team around him. He's got some excellent ladies who are very diligent with the uploading, but I get very upset when I see big tech attacking people that I like and I trust. And I'm going to make sure that we keep your narrative going, not only on Graham's account, but even on Facebook, starting you up again and building that up again. They can't keep doing this. The people are still there. The people aren't going back to mainstream media. They're still looking for John Larter. They want to hear from John Larter. There are over 30,000 people that started following John Larter, and they're like, where is John? Why did he stop posting? He didn't. Big tech is trying to be an idiotic parent for you. They reckon you're all stupid, and they're trying to censor John Larter because they don't think that this paramedic is qualified to talk on these topics. Well, you know what? This is why I do what I do. This is why I try to help raise the voices of these excellent men who have expertise in their areas. I'm just a construction guy, but John Larter, he was a respected paramedic. He is a respected paramedic, and he is someone that has been speaking out. He put it all on the line, and what is the thanks that his government gives him? They come after him in every kind of way that is absolutely despicable. John, I do hope you run again, because I can't wait to see you throwing facts and logic at some of these knuckleheads in Parliament.
Oh, we'll see what happens.
I don't mean to poke the bear here, but I'm still wondering why I've never even been put into Facebook jail. I don't understand it. I mean, here I go. I'm gone now for sure.
Yeah.
But look, to be honest with you, it almost embarrasses me. I think I've got 135,000 followers or something, and I think you were warning me nearly 6 months ago that my following's getting too big and I'm likely to get hammered by them. But I don't know why, other than divine intervention, that I'm still going. I know it's not as effective because I'm shadow banned and whatever those terms mean, but I'm like John, I've got zero. I mean, if Facebook was an aeroplane, I would have crashed it a long time ago. I mean, I've got no idea how to fly that sucker.
I've got a few theories, but I won't say it on live here because then they'll go after you. But yeah, look, once you cross the 100K mark, Graham, I was starting to get a bit worried because there are a number of accounts I've helped build to 100K, and once they get to that point, there's something that happens, and they do tend to heavily censor you. But I have
the common denominator.
No, yeah. Well, no, you're still around. You're still around, and we've learned from our experiences in the past. And I'm glad that I reckon the man upstairs is also keeping a watchful eye over you. And you don't just talk about this specific stuff. You talk about actual like Christian living, Australian living, the Anzac spirit. And a lot of that stuff, it's like the fact checkers look through it and they're like, we can't really ban that. I mean, it's not really, bannable. But look, I have no doubt that this censorship game is not over. And I do want to just leave you guys with some encouraging news. So I don't know if you guys listening know how this works. When John and Graham and I want to talk and do a stream on something, we literally, within 30 minutes, we're on the camera and we're talking with each other. So while I was out, I was getting an acai bowl down the road, and I ran into this guy called Gene. Gene runs a group that started off with 3 people. Now, talking about jab injuries and everything, it's now grown to over 20 times that. It's at 65 people, and that is the model for success. That is what's going on a massive level. People like Graham and John, they've been making the point that we need to be building our own self-sustainable communities and coming together and building culture and looking out for each other. Well, that's what this group's doing. Now, I'm seeing them on Sunday. I can't wait to hear from them and hear their stories and hear what's going on and hear how they've been bonding. But that's success. That's what we've got to get back to. And I want to give full credit to Graham and John for encouraging people like this who are fans of your work.
Yeah, Joel, I want to say something that was said to us yesterday. I think it's the quote of the entire last 2 years, and it came from Jayanthi Kunadasan, Dr. Jayanthi Kunadasan, that wonderful lady. You're going to love her presentation when you get to see it. But she said that, talking about the medical profession, it's been broken by people who didn't build it. And I can say that about Qantas. Qantas is a 100-year brand that has been broken by people who didn't build it. And when you think about what insect out there destroys things that other things build and other people build, it's a termite.
Yeah.
And this country needs to do termite eradication. This country is being destroyed by people who had nothing to do with building it. We're talking about the corporations from overseas. We're talking about all the other corporate fingers that are in the pie and everything that we do and say in Australia. We're talking about new world orders and world governments and one world religions and all this Babylonian garbage. Our fibre, every fibre of our being is being chewed away by termites. And they didn't build it. And that's what makes the whole Anzac thing so heartbreaking. Because they went to build our freedom and it's been eroded by termites and people who let termites eat away without getting an inspection done, without getting someone to come into their house and tap on the floorboards, and without then getting the pesticide in there to rid the place of the termites. You eradicate them. What you do is with a termite is you find a way of getting a poison to the to the queen in the termite colony, and that's the end of it. It stops. We've got to find out who's running this show and put them where they need to be, in prison.
Absolutely. We need to clear out of all levels. And speaking of clear outs, and I'm conscious of time, I've got to let John and Graham get on to interviewing another excellent doctor in their field, expert in their field. But yeah, so in Victoria, they're priming up for their election. They've got 101 days before their state election to get rid of Daniel Andrews. And I'm very much looking forward to assisting wherever I can with that. Dan has been absolutely trashing every institution down there. IBAC is a toothless tiger. I don't know how many times he's dodged IBAC, dodged the media. His worm tongue is phenomenal, his ability to get out of things. Just so you guys know, I'm heading down to Victoria to support Topher Field's documentary on Battleground Melbourne about how this actually happened and how he gave himself these emergency powers. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Topher and supporting him on that on the 23rd. And when it comes to, what's going on in this country, I think we do need to keep meeting up in groups. I think that it's vitally important. And Gene, big shout out to you that I saw you at the cafe today. You're a legend. I'm sorry that the things that have happened to you and your family over the course of the last few years. And this is part of the reason why we meet and why we strengthen each other and why it's basically church of a different way. It's camaraderie. It's a brotherhood. And I want to encourage people, if you're in Sydney, don't forget that we've actually got this Nigel Farage tour as well on I do believe it's Tuesday the 27th of September. Graham and John are going to be there. We've also got an interview with Nigel Farage coming up online, so you guys will get a bit of a taste about what that's going to be like. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing that with you absolute legends. And if you guys want tickets for that, you can book now at nigellive.com.au. But gents, I'm going to let you go. If you're listening live right now, please follow Graham Hood. It's not Graham Hood, it's Pilot.
Graham Hood, motivational speaker.
Graham Hood, motivational speaker. And you've also got John. I should, but I didn't change it. I set it up as Graham Hood, so someone's changed it. But then you've also got John Larter on Facebook there being heavily censored. I'm going to look into that. I'm going to make sure that he continues to, you know, John, we're going to start collecting emails because I'm sick of these bastards basically going after you. And I don't know if you've got an email database too, Graham, but we need some backups. You know, we can't keep playing whack-a-mole with these people that basically want to censor us for life. So I'm going to make some inroads into that because we can't have two of our strongest voices in New South Wales, especially ahead of upcoming elections, being censored. So, gents, any final words for our audience?
Oh, that Victorian poster was amazing.
Oh, yeah. I can put it back up if you want.
Says it all. That poster says, it speaks volumes. Look at Morrison on the left-hand side laughing. You know, you've got police commissioners raising their hands and look, that says it all. It's just incredible. And there's Chairman Dan. Good grief. I mean, that's what's wrong with Australia right there on one poster. Oh, you couldn't make that stuff up, John.
Couldn't make it up. I think you just couldn't make this stuff up.
God bless you, gentlemen. The 26th of November, 101 days away. Victorians, we're here to help, and we're going to see what result we can get together. I'll see you guys later. Amen. Amen. God bless you, gentlemen, and keep up the great work.
Thanks, Joel.
Good night, mate.